Hello everyone and welcome to another Daily Muppet, and in today's video we're going to talk about some of the decisions that are upcoming, the further appointments that might be made, if there are, discuss some of the profit and sustainability rules and see if there are have been any issues, some of the news that's out there moving forward into the summer, a few of the decisions, departures, and things we might be seeing there, and just start getting into it as we move closer to March, one day away, where the month where, as I see it, things are really going to have to start to take shape for this summer and really for next season as well. So let's get into it. Before we get started again this time, this video is sponsored by SofaScore. You can use the link in the description below or the little QR code over to that way to download SofaScore, a great app for keeping up with all the scores, stats, and everything that you might want to see, heat maps, etc. When watching the games, I definitely recommend it and appreciate it a lot. So, recruitment, and look, my little highlight is too small for this long word. Wish it would auto-adjust, but it doesn't. Need to get a little more professional setup going here soon. Anyway, with regards to recruitment, obviously, I want to talk about personnel because, obviously it's been a little while since we first got the information solidly confirmed out there from David Ornstein and such about Dan Ashworth, and then the stories were sort of going and kicking off, and he went on gardening leave, and now they are in the process of negotiating. There's some information potentially coming out that this is nearing its conclusion. As I understand it, the latest that I'd had hasn't been in the last day or two, but the latest that I had was that United, and I'm trying to change how I say this. I tweeted this out too. I'm used to saying Ineos, but it's done. The guys from Ineos are now United, and since they're running United, they're as much United as anybody's ever been. So what they're doing, United are doing, but obviously, understandably, this is now being led by those new arrivals to becoming part of United, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Jean-Claude Blanc, Nevin, Sir Dave Brailsford, and everybody else, Omar Barada, all of them, even from behind the scenes. So United are intending to figure out ideally a way that he can get started for the summer. That was always the intention. That was always what they wanted to do. That was what they were trying to work out, was to get him started for the summer, get him in for the summer so that they could take advantage of that situation this year. They know there's a lot of big decisions to be made. And so, as I understood it recently, they were still working on ideally getting a way to shorten it down where he could start closer, or maybe even there's flexibility within the terms of said gardening leave, right? It could be, I don't know. There might even be other ways to work this out. It's a negotiation where, you don't have the interference, but he can start to work on the things that United have. We'll see. Maybe there's been progress on that. I haven't been able to confirm it 100% on my end or anything yet, but I see that there are some things about that going, but I do know that that's what they were working on. Following that, I believe they'll approach on Jason Wilcox, but I don't know that that's something they want to interrupt either, or make a big fuss about. However, in addition to that, I do believe that they are now moving forward with a move for another individual with regards to recruitment. They may have a few people in mind still, but I do understand that they're moving ahead on someone who also they're going to try for somebody who is presently in a position, and this would be below Ashworth, this individual below Ashworth and all that, but that they're going to try for somebody who I believe is currently employed, and obviously that will require discussions, agreement, and all that, which is why I don't want to necessarily get into it now until it's ready to be out there and they're ready to make that approach, because I'm not sure when or if. But either way, I'll go ahead with the name shortly. I just want to confirm a few things as well on it first. But they're ready to make an approach on that and bring in some more additional at least an additional person. I don't know how many people they're going to end up hiring in the end when it comes to the recruitment side of things, but they want to push ahead with that very shortly to make some decisions and to really get started for summer. I think that a key to it will be, and I think why they're going to want to have multiple options, is they can't end up in a situation where there's another person, like on leave or something that can't start till summer. That just can't happen. If they get the right person, even while the other's on gardening leave, they could be well coordinated, and this person can really get to work because recruitment starts now and needs to be going. So they may have a few options, but I do know they're pressing ahead with at least one very shortly, and should be making an approach here maybe this week. Well, it's Thursday, maybe next week. But I do expect things will kick off there soon. With regards to decisions, now, as I've said as well, with that, in March, as I've maintained all along, is when I expect that that United will have to be making their decisions with regards to the future, summer, all of that. You tie in all the things before. The plan has always been top to bottom. CEO's done. Ashworth is moving forward. It will happen, when, not if, type of situation, and maybe done, maybe close to done, as well as Jason Wilcox getting there. This other person they're ready to move forward on. The next down from that is the manager. And so I don't want to get into Ten Hag in, Ten Hag out, talking about other names and things like that at this time. I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that United have been going and interviewing a bunch of managers or doing things like that. A lot of the stories you are seeing are definitely things that are being put out by agents and such. I believe that to be the case with Julian Nagelsmann, that quite a bit of it is being driven by the other side, not by United side. Internally, United have not expressed anything down to people that Ten Hag will be replaced or that he will get a new contract or anything like that. There's been nothing communicated down there. Right now, the discussions are happening at a very, very high level, well above where things are coming out in stories, leaking, and all of that. And so I want to give my understanding of the situation as it is presently. And my understanding of the situation right now is that those discussions are occurring at a high level, well up there, as to the manager's situation moving forward. And the thing about how that decision is going to be made, as I understand it, is it's not about a win, a loss. It's not about, this game win, well, now he's going to be staying in the job, or this game lost, that means he's sacked, or anything like that. One, I would still be very surprised if anything happens before the end of the season either way, publicly, and I would be extremely surprised if we lost the next 5 games if Ten Hag was let go. I don't think that there would be any public announcement, positive or negative, until you saw finality on the Champions League front, whether it's, we're in a great position to confirm Champions League, or whether we're in a position where Champions League is out of reach. So I wouldn't necessarily expect anything, briefed or public or anything like that anytime soon on that front either. The decision will be made based not on, form. It's not arbitrarily, does he get top 5 or not? It is simply, do they feel that he is the right man to take them forward for multiple years? As I was expressing with Phil on the podcast, and this is information-based opinion, they're not in a situation where they can consider looking at, well, just give him another year like that, because what you're really saying by saying, well, let's see how he does next season under the structure, is you're saying it may not work, we're not sure, we're going to try it, but then you might have to sack next year, right? That can't happen. There's no way they want to go in and have to change managers during their first full season. That would be a disaster from Ineos' perspective. That could obviously result in multiple years out of Champions League, all of that. That can't happen. You really want to give, you want to have a plan. And so the decision is not going to be based on, did we achieve this arbitrary result? That means 1 year, we're going to see what happens. the decision is intended to be based on, do they feel whether Ten Hag is the right person moving forward for the next 3 years? And I would say it is more likely that it's going to be either he goes or gets a new contract, not stays for a year to see how he does under this new structure. That's how I see it. Obviously, the decision has not been 100% made, and anybody saying it is not the case yet. They have not offered the job to anybody else. They have not offered Ten Hag a new contract, so the decision has not been made, and is being evaluated. But it is expected to come to a conclusion soon. It is not necessarily about one game here or there, loss or win or something like that. They don't intend to wait to the end of the season to decide on that, and it is very likely going to be based on a 3-year decision, not a 1-year decision. So, we will see what moves forward from there. Obviously, it's a little bit of a tricky situation. If they did decide to change managers and they had to start searching for them in March, obviously you'd likely see some news coming out from different areas. But, sometimes there's so much news that surrounds United that it kind of masks real things that are happening and doesn't cause problems anyway. So I guess we will see. But it is a situation that has to be resolved. Liverpool are in the present, obviously, publicly searching for managers, and from tier 1, David Ornstein's, Pierce, and all of that, they're looking at multiple managers that I would say, multiple managers that I would say would be people that would potentially be evaluated for United if a change would be made. Xabi Alonso obviously is going to be really difficult for United to get, given his status and all that with Liverpool, but obviously somebody who anybody would want to look at and say that's a top manager in the making. Ruben Amorim, someone that Liverpool are definitely looking at. I can see exactly why they want him to replace Klopp, because stylistically, what he brings to the table, what he offers is pretty impressive, I think, in my opinion. And, so yeah, I could see that happening. And I would worry, if these are, if they're able to make their moves and get managers in, and United do end up looking, they can't be behind the 8 ball and missing out on a lot of people that they would potentially at least want to interview in that case. I'm sure they're aware of that, and I'm sure, again, that's why a decision has to be made early if you're going to be looking or not. So yeah, I don't want to go further than that on the manager front. There's big game at City at the weekend, and I don't want to get into that because I just don't think it's necessary or fair or correct at the moment to dive further and start talking about who United should get if Ten Hag goes and things like that, because the decision hasn't been made. With regards to positions that United are looking at, there's been a few different reports, and I think that obviously, some people will say, well, there's no director in, and so how could you decide on these things? And that has some merit and not some merit, because one of the views is that, yeah, you're going to want, you're going to have directors in, and some of the decisions may change in terms of specific targets. But there's a lot of people at United, analytics, scouting, all of that, whose data is valid and is a huge part of the process that the directors are going to be looking at. Dan Ashworth is not going to come in and say, I want that player, that player. That's not who he is. He's not that kind of person. You're going to have people evaluating the data. And the data from the United side of things and people definitely determines the positions. And as I understand it, the biggest factors are, one, on the wings. There's striker and in the wings, but both are a necessity. You've seen the reports. I've been saying this for quite a long time, that prior to joining United, that Ineos had already identified, they really are not high on Antony, and when you kind of look at that means you have 3 forwards. You only have 2 wingers and 1 striker. So you need 2 positions there, likely maybe somebody at striker to come in, but also a right-sided winger as well. And that is definitely still a position of interest, and I still would not lose sight of that. Um, it was interesting. There was a report that talked about, right back and right center back, but didn't mention a midfield. But they are 100% looking at the midfield because we already know Casemiro is a player that has not been evaluated as good enough at this stage from cost factors, all of that, and is likely going to go, or has a very good chance of leaving, and is a transfer they were not super happy with. That's been publicly talked about. Ericsson doesn't seem to be able to make it on the pitch anymore. Amrabat will leave. You're short in the midfield no matter what you do, and so you're going to have signings in the midfield. Center backs is a big one because you could see 2 or 3, and then the problem is you need 2 fullbacks now too. So there's a lot of business to do, but part of this is obviously the part where it will change could be based on, of course, decisions with the manager. What kind of system do they play? What kind of formations? How does that all align together, and where do they fit? But as I understand it, for sure, a winger, a midfielder, and 2 center backs is like the absolute minimum that they're looking at right now in terms of positions. In terms of PSR, there's obviously been some questions as to how bad is it for United? Is it bad? How does the Ineos investment tie in? And it seems like there's been a few different reports on this and a few different breakdowns, but um, as I understood it, they wanted to have a big summer, but still a smart summer. And by that, I mean there's still going to be a focus on bringing those wages down, clearing those top end wages, the guys who are making the most money, and replacing them with younger players that are coming in. I don't think it's going to be as big a deal as people think. There was a recent analysis that said that something like 30-40 million in room on the losses with the investment. And that's not 30-40 million spend, but that's like you could lose 30 or 40 million again. But I don't think there's going to be a huge problem here, but I don't think at the same time that United will be this summer buying 100 million plus players at the same time. They know that even if they can handle it now, a big part of that is because of the investments and things that are coming in. And because they might have an opportunity here to clear off like a lot of wages, Martial, Varane, potentially Casemiro, like huge people on huge wages. You don't get that every year. Once you sign them, then that's it for 5 years. But they really want to make smart decisions about bringing that down so they have a lot more room each summer to do it as necessary and not have to constantly be fighting right up against it. Because again, the caps and FFP for UEFA and such are coming down as well. And so I don't think a huge problem, but they still want to, that focus is still going to be on bringing in potentially lower wage players on good deals to replace some of the higher wage players. So, you end up just bringing that bar down a bit more. In terms of departures, that was what it leads me to. I would still expect to see, Varane, Casemiro, Ericsson, Martial, Sancho, and I'm trying to think if there's any other major departure, and then potentially one of Maguire, Lindelof as well. And like I said, I wouldn't get too attached to practically anybody because almost all of them are they're not going to sell everybody, but there's a lot of players that they would consider selling, and once they've sold some, they're not going to just sell everybody else. I don't think we're going to see a Chelsea-like summer of just like 10 departures, of senior players. I think you could see total like 10. A lot of them are players who don't really play. But you're not going to see this massive, like, everybody's an under 23 on the pitch and you have no leaders and nothing there. It's not going to be like that. But I do think, yeah, you would see the possibility of, as I've mentioned before, Bruno Fernandes and such being potential to be sold if there was a good offer and if the situation was aligned on it. That doesn't mean he's for sale or being shopped around, but expect Varane, Casemiro, Sancho, Ericsson would be people I would expect to depart, and then uh, potentially others, in addition to that. The one thing I will say, and I was trying to think to be careful on this, but I don't want it to be taken the wrong way either, is if there was a new manager, some of those departures are probably they're going to want to speak to that manager first, because there are aspects where some of these departures are a little bit on the basis of personal issues, personal disagreements, as well as just not fitting the manager, not necessarily the style or system, but not fitting the manager. There have been multiple issues with that with different players. So if there was a change in manager, then that might be a little more significant in terms of different conversations occurring before these players are sold. But again, that's why things need to change when it comes to how United approach the summer, how they do things, and when, especially, as I get it, Ineos really do want to do things well ahead. So that means decision on manager. That means decision on players too. So maybe those conversations will have to happen earlier, and including on players like Mason Greenwood. That is not something that's going to drag into the middle of summer, whether he's going to return or be sold. It is 100% not going to drag to know which is occurring. I'm not saying he'd be sold by the end of May or by the start of summer if they're selling him, because you want to have offers and there's timing for deals and all that. But what I am saying is that they're not waiting on these decisions, right? They're going to be making these decisions now. And I think that is one of the differences. So there's a little bit, it's all a little bit challenging because it's a weird position where, decisions are going to be made about coach, players, and all of that a lot earlier while the season is still ongoing, which is how most clubs do it. And then you get a little bit of a faster kind of reporting. And I don't know, just as a final point on this, not to waffle on for too long on this video, but I'm not used to it as a United fan. I'm used to looking at things, the plans that I've seen lining up in February and March, but then a lot of them kind of die off and sort of get changed and sit around. And there tends to be a worry about, I don't want to report on this coach before the end of the season. Don't want to report on this player before the end of the season. What if it unsettles them and all that? But you don't see that worry with other clubs so much, do you? You don't see that worry quite as much with other big clubs about, oh my God, there's reports. Is it gonna bother the players or things like that? I don't know how any of us are gonna view that. I don't know if they're gonna care, or if they're gonna think, yeah, we want things really quiet until the summer. Or if they're gonna think we got to make our moves. We're not really worried about settling or unsettling players. But I don't know. I'm curious. So I guess we'll see. Anyway, obviously, yeah, big game at the weekend, and then I do think a lot of I know that a lot of major decisions are on the cusp, and potentially then I'll be able to share quite a bit more about our summer plans in the very, very near future. Wanted to mention again, yes, it was confirmed by the scouts attending thing that United had been watching. I said his name wrong, and now I'm sitting here thinking I'm going to say it wrong again. The Danish midfielder at Sporting, but that United had been watching him, and that was confirmed by the scouts attending thing that United have been watching him. Good player. I've been watching a decent amount of Sporting. He's a good player. I think very interesting defensive midfielder type, but obviously, a name to be looking at, a name to be watching, somebody that could come in and, potentially replace Casemiro should he depart. So anyway, thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on, download SofaScore. Appreciate them for sponsoring us, and thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.